Black Wind Guai is the imposing boss of Black Myth Wukong Chapter 1. This bear isn't just intimidating because of his glowing red eyes, or because he's a gigantic bear that could tear you apart with a single claw. He is also intimidating because in his second phase, he's on fire. And for me personally, the only thing scarier than a giant black bear with glowing red eyes is a giant black bear with glowing red eyes that's also on fire. But as intimidating as this bear is, and as much as he is a step up from many of the other bosses you face throughout the chapter, he isn't invincible. So if you pay attention to his attack patterns and use an item from the secret boss, you should be able to take him down, though it might take a little bit of practice. And speaking of, one thing that could be handy ahead of a boss fight is paying close attention to the Black Wind King. This is a battle that very much mimics some of the moves Black Wind Guai uses. Specifically, when the Black Wind King transforms into a wind and rushes at you, this is something used within Black Wind Guai's transition phase. So if you fight a few times against the king, it could give you a little bit of practice for the final boss. With that said, if you've already defeated the Black Wind King, don't worry about it too much. After you defeat this boss, you'll move on to Chapter 2. And for more information on that, be sure to get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, because I'm going to be making a couple of videos going over both the chapter boss and secret bosses in Chapter 2 in the very near future. Now, before you take on Black Wind Guai, I strongly recommend defeating Chapter 1 secret boss Jinshi first. You do this to gain a fire resistance bonus item that you can use in Phase 2. But if you want to know more about how to find and how to beat Jinshi, then do check out my dedicated video that'll be linked up on the card and down below. Watch through, maybe go get the item for yourself, then come back here. Personally, I did do the fight, both without the transformation from Guangxi and without the fire resistance item, so it's definitely possible, but it made the whole experience far more difficult than it needed to be. Now, because of his size, Black Wind Guai is a little bit harder for the camera to track as compared to most of the other things you fought throughout the chapters. So seeing exactly when he's timing his attacks to avoid them is a bit harder. Now, I tried having both the camera locked on and having the camera not locked on. Personally, I found it much easier to track him when the camera was locked on, even if occasionally it did get a bit janky. A lot of the time, Black Wind Guai will strike in front of him and chain about 3 attacks together simultaneously. But if you stand either to the side or behind him, he jumps into the air in an attempt to suplex you. If you dodge this, you give yourself a really good opening to strike as he takes some time to stand back up. So, I found that a lot of his dangerous attacks were to the front, therefore I'd be dodging left and right, not backwards, or I'd try to go forwards and through the boss to try to get him to use that suplex attack so that I could avoid it and get some free damage uptime. I also found the boss's most dangerous attacks are the ones he executed from a distance. He'd run away, it'd be kind of a little standoff, then he'd charge, doing something very dangerous and covering a lot of that distance almost instantaneously. So in my later attempts, I tried to stick a little bit closer to him, and that worked out better, at least for me. The last thing which I found took some practice, but ended up making the fight easier, was getting into a good flow. Hit the boss a couple times, don't worry about a full light attack combo, dodge away, wait for an opening, and use a charged heavy attack. Provided you've built up the focus for it, you can spend all of your focus points and deal significant damage, most likely staggering the boss as you do. Where the boss gets really serious is at 50% health. He enters Phase 2 and transforms into a black wind wreathed in flame. At this point, he begins charging at you several times before transforming back into a bear, signaling the end of a transition phase. When he's in his black wind form, watch for a slight flash right before he rushes towards you. Use this to time your dodge to avoid the charge. For me personally, this was very much the hardest part of a fight. Once I was able to get through this with a good amount of healing left in my gourd, then I was able to take the boss down. But before that, I struggled, and I died so many times either in this transition or coming right out of it when I'd already used all of my healing. I had low health, and I just got chipped away those few times that I did get hit in the last part of a fight. Because the second part of a fight is much more dangerous than the first, this is a great time to pop your fire damage reduction. Also, this is a really good time to use a transformation spell, since the transformation's health bar is separate from your own. Therefore, it gives you a little bit of a buffer if you do end up getting hit and taking excessive damage. Personally, this is also where I saved all of my mana. I was alternating between different spells, with a big focus on Immobilize, so that I could get in those extra damage burst windows and set up for those charged heavy attack combos. Building up the focus took a little time, especially since I couldn't do a full combo, the boss often interrupted me, but once I was able to do it, it made the battle much easier. Don't get too greedy. Don't count on your next attack interrupting the boss. Especially if he's mid-combo, it's probably not going to happen. Now if he's not mid-combo, then there's a good chance you will be able to interrupt him, staggering him for a short duration. which is why if I was able to get off a light finisher and it caused him to stagger, I would follow it up with a heavy attack. Generally speaking, that was able to get in a good amount of extra free damage. But with all that said, here's the full attempt in which I took down Black Wind Guai. With the boss defeated, you now move on to Chapter 2 to continue your journey. Now personally, I found this boss to be very much a step up from everything that I'd fought previously. The only other boss that I'd say was kind of sort of on par was the white-clad noble. But at the same time, it did feel like a fair fight. It didn't feel like it was pulling any bullshit, if you know what I mean. I do wish the camera pulled a little back, but hey, every Souls game, every difficult game that uses big bosses seems to have the camera just a little too close for comfort on many of these fights. But part of the reason that I found it so difficult is I was missing the fire resistance that definitely would have saved me a lot of trouble in Phase 2, and I was missing the transformation, which is not only a full second health bar, that is super, super, super important, but that transformation does a lot of damage, even if a boss is probably pretty resistant to fire. But I would very much recommend that you do the optional bosses first, especially since that transformation continues to be very useful throughout Chapter 2. Again, if you want to see how to do that, there's going to be a link up in the card and down below. But for now, I'm going to continue my journey, because I've been having a lot of fun, and I want to see what bosses the game throws at me next. If there's more guides that you want to see, or more bosses you're curious about how to defeat, then do be sure to comment down below, let me know what you want to see, then get subscribed, keep an eye out for it in a future video. Before I go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this one possible. Link to support is also down below. And a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you've been enjoying the videos, and I'm curious, do you like the uncut gameplay footage that I've been weaving in here and there? It's very much something that I'm a sucker for in the content that I watch, but I don't know if it's for everyone. So if you watch these videos and you made it to the end, let me know your thoughts on that as well, and I look forward to hearing from you down below and seeing you in the next one.